Hello, everyone. Welcome to Free Thinkers Hub, episode number 40 of this series. And the theme today is how every encounter is creating a new pathway of reality in a fractal universe. And topics we're going to cover are my guest, Shehnaz Soni, her own personal journey from being a rocket scientist to becoming a spiritual alchemist, fractality and the holographic universe, and how we live in an interactive world that creates these fractal patterns based on our daily interactions. And then the differences and similarities between the technology of being human versus a rocket, including quantum jumping. So let me tell you more about my guest. I'm so delighted to be speaking to Shehnaz Soni, who was born and raised as an Orthodox Muslim in Karachi, Pakistan. From day one, she was asked to fit inside a box that didn't align with her true calling. She grew up feeling trapped within a patriarchal cultural mindset where women were expected to be wives and homemakers and not encouraged to go to school. Despite this, her aspirations to achieve a college degree and financial independence was soon obliterated, despite going to do engineering in Pakistan, when she was forced into an arranged marriage, which disrupted her education. Subsequently immigrated to the United States with her new groom, leaving everything behind. However, committed to pursuing her dream life, she attended a community college to learn English. She already spoke 3 Asian languages, but had always dreamed of speaking English fluently. Her decision not to take no for an answer rewarded her with a degree in electrical engineering at the University of California, Irvine. This achievement launched her into a life of financial independence, space exploration, and an ongoing personal expedition of change at both the physical and quantum levels. Shehnaz has worked as a rocket scientist for both Boeing and NASA. Her work on the massive rocket called Space Launch System, SLS, will be used in one of the earlier missions to facilitate living on the moon. Additionally, she assisted in building and implementing the Falcon 9 rocket, which provided a taxi service for astronauts aboard the International Space Station, eliminating the US's reliance on the Russian Soyuz rocket. Her most recent work at NASA includes the Artemis project. She and her cutting-edge team of aerospace engineers have developed requirements for the unprecedented human landing system, also known as HLS. When ready to launch, the system will finally bridge humankind with a long-term presence on the moon and ultimately on Mars. The astronauts pre-selected to take this flagship journey will include the first women and first person of colour ever to step foot on the south side of the moon and Mars. Latterly, as the author of The Quantum Being, Shehnaz shares her passion through writing. This book is part of a memoir and part guide for humanity and will bridge science and spirituality to help the reader realise the truth of their magnificence as human beings on the journey to manifest their own miracles. Thank you, Shehnaz. Welcome.
Thank you. I love when you started with what we are going to cover today, because that's the type of conversation I can have all day long.
Oh, well, I mean, I am so impressed with you. I can't, because I think as another Asian woman, independent Asian woman, you have to understand that to know how breaking the boundaries is so momentous. So I'm going to start deep dive with you because I know we've got limited time. From a Muslim immigrant woman to a rocket scientist to a spiritual alchemist, what awakening moments were there for you on this journey?
That is the interesting thing is that when you are like a Soni, like in the iRobot movie, like the robot that was basically dreaming, right? The robot that was different from everybody else. That consciousness, right? That driver that's within you, something that's constantly nudging you, right? I actually am realizing that a lot of people don't listen to that, right? Because to me, that has been the only reason I have made it. I have basically created this dynamic experiences in my life, right? Where at one point I'm all covered up and walking and crossing the road where your chances of dying is pretty high because how the traffic is in Karachi, right? And how people drive there. And then you are looking at all of that, and then you look at yourself like, where you are, like where now I'm talking to this very small group of people, and we're deciding on exactly how we're going to create the architecture, to make sure that the astronaut doesn't lose any comm while they're on the lunar surface for 1 week, during this manned mission to the South Pole of the moon. So it's a very interesting life that I have chosen to experience in a very interesting way. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. And I believe there was only one common denominator, and that was me being aware of my soul.
Okay, very powerful answer. And that is it, isn't it? It's like, what's your soul's mission? Why have you come to this planet? And how are you going to fulfill that soul plan? And I think people are waking up more to that kind of questioning. However, it sounds like that was very, very ignited for you from the beginning. And I'm very interested because how did you go from a practicing Muslim to being a practitioner of Cabala? I mean, is that a quantum leap in itself?
Oh, big time, especially considering that my dad, who has been very pivotal in my transformation, and he was basically started out as a dad whom I was scared of while I was living with him, right? Because he was kind of a little bit more aggressive than I like him to be. And then on top of that, he didn't agree with my education. So I was not very comfortable with him. And then I come to America with arranged marriage. And then once I come there, then he realizes all the things he did that was not right. So he started saying sorry to me in every single phone call I would have with him after that, right? So we created a bond, and then we started falling in love with each other, right? So we came full circle. And it was very interesting that when I actually decided to leave my traditional upbringing, my first husband, my, whatever I was told you need to do to stay in the box, that was 24 years ago, by the way. So when I left all that, and of course, my dad stood by me. And then I ended up understanding metaphysics because I was in a quest, because I understood physics. I used to teach physics even in Karachi to students. And so I was like, what is metaphysics, right? I Google it, I find the school, local school here, mystery school. I learn every single thing they can teach. And then I come to the point where they say that we are done teaching you now. The only thing you need to learn as a next step is Cabala. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, well, we don't have a teacher here because the teacher is very old, and we truly don't have a local teacher. So I said, okay. So then I basically took upon myself to understand Cabala and teach Cabala. So that I did it 10 years ago too. So I'm teaching Cabala to all these Christians. And I started out by saying that here is a Muslim teaching Christian a Jewish way. Like it was like a joke, right? So it was fun for me to say that. But the point of the story is that when actually I started teaching Cabala, I'm on a phone call with my dad. And then I'm telling my dad that I'm going to be teaching Cabala, right? And he has no idea. He knows Cabala is bad because every Muslim thinks, like they all have certain understanding of it. And of course, he said he knew that Cabala is not considered good from a Muslim standpoint. But because we had made our relationship so strong, right? That what he said? He said to me that, oh, I'm sure if you're teaching it, then it must be the right thing. Like he did not question me, right? And that to me was like a full circle healing with my dad, because the fact that I had such a strong emotion with him because of how, my childhood was with him, and the fact that we came full circle where now he doesn't even question. It's almost like if I say dad is night, and even if it looks like it's day, he's going to say, you're right.
So, well, it sounds like he really came to respect and admire you, or well, maybe like the son he didn't have, but that
is
you were
exactly
equivalent.
You're absolutely right, because I was a firstborn, right? And generally Muslim, right? Men, they prefer men because, the whole culture is very much like men will take care of the parents and the girl will leave you. So if you think about from that standpoint, girl is like not necessarily a good investment in that sense. So he was not necessarily very happy when he had a firstborn as a daughter. But then he basically said that you are more than a son to me. He did say that to me. So that to me, I think to me, coming to that full circle was my like it gave me that self-confidence that I wish that everybody can do that with whomever they need to heal, right? Because we all have close family members that triggers us to transform us, to help us transform. And ultimately, if it wouldn't be for him, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Well, I mean, that's a journey in itself, isn't it, to get to that stage of gratitude when there's been such conflict before that. And I'm sure that will chime with so many people listening in terms of, their own family groups. But let's go on to talk about fractals, because you started off saying that you could talk about this all day. So, yeah, how are our lives governed by fractality?
How is our life, you mean, affected by fractality? Because
Yeah.
so if you really think about it, like and that requires you to understand how everything comes into existence, right? Every single thing comes into existence through following a pattern. That pattern is a fractal pattern. And whether you agree with it or not, you can see, like when you look at the branches in the tree and you look at your heart, arteries and veins, you see that they both exhibit the exact same pattern. It's because every single thing, just when you look at the organism, right? Like from a very, very small organism and how we even came into existence as a human being, that entire perpetuation of creation, right? That multiplication follows a fractal holographic matrix. And that has been actually proven by many, many different sources. And when you really look at, so I will, like flower of life, for example, right? That is a representation of interaction coming together, making a vesica Pisces, and then that interaction multiplying and creating a seed of life, which is the same pattern as our cell has. And then that ends up becoming, the fruit of life and the flower of life. So that perpetuation of transformation is embedded in every single thing. And when you actually do something consciously with the goal in mind, then you make a beautiful sacred geometry, which is when it looks like a flower of life. So flower of life pattern basically depicts something that is a coherent frequency coming together, right? Because you can create whatever you want. You can create hell and you can create heaven, right? So therefore, the pattern will be according to that. But that perpetuation, that multiplication, the Mandelbrot set, it was interesting because when the entire fractal concept that came into existence, by the way, and when I was researching it and I was understanding about Mandelbrot, who actually was a Boeing engineer, and he was basically just looking to create a background for the Boeing plane to have a background that would look very realistic. And because he was a software engineer, he ended up figuring it out, this fractal equation, right, which is z equal to z squared plus c, which actually is like a feedback loop. And that equation is what he used to create a background for the plane. And that ended up becoming like a pivotal point for the entire CGI that happened in the movie industry, because he was able to figure out that how a simple equation can create something so complex. And based on that formula, they plugged and play. And that's why we have like such a, the grand experience when we're watching a movie, because that was all embedded in it. So the point of the story is that actually the pattern exist when we understand the pattern, and our ancient wisdom, right, has always understood all of that. They understood the whole pattern of the phi ratio, right, the pattern of the spiral, because that phi ratio basically is a way to gauge that you are making a beautiful sacred geometry, right? So for the most part, a lot of people say that everything is not symmetric in real life, which is true, right? Because our body is not even symmetric. When you look at our right side and our left side, right, like our eyebrows or our eyes, there's a little bit of, and partly because it doesn't need to be symmetric for it to look good. But that symmetric is something that we use as a gauge for the beauty, because we kind of subconsciously choose a pattern that looks more close to the flower of life pattern, right? Like Leonardo's painting, right? He actually used that because that's why his painting became so famous. So the point of the story is that it's embedded in us. The fractal holographic matrix is how everything perpetuates. And it's completely up to you what you're creating, because whatever you create will have a pattern more close to the coherent frequency or not.
Well, very interesting to hear about how the Mandelbrot set led into the CGI and the film industry, because I hadn't heard that before. Because that's a simulation, isn't it? It's a simulation of a simulation, and what quantum physics is saying is that it's all a simulation. That what we see in our 1% of physical reality is happening in the 99% of non-physical, isn't it? And so you're talking about the power of intention of creating these patterns, and it's our intention that matters as to what kind of pattern we're creating. So I guess in a sense that leads on to, do you want to talk about the vibration of the heart? Because vibration is so key, isn't it, to it all? So the vibration of the heart rather than the head in creation.
So vibration is pretty much every single thing vibrates. Your heart vibrates, your mind vibrates, your brain, everything vibrates. Where you end up accessing, right? Like what you think about, like if you're thinking from your heart or you're thinking from your mind, all of that ultimately becomes a gauge for your next movement, your next experience, right? Because you are basically deciding what you want to experience based on how you're vibrating. So to me, this, and I know that like a lot of people, and heart math has proven, right, that the way with the signature that the heart makes with its vibration is extremely magnificent, way more than the brain, which is true. At the end of the day, what I actually focus on is that because we are, we are a whole human being, right? And our heart and mind, our heart and brain is connected with vagus nerve, right? This whole everything is connected, right? So it's not like one or the other, right? It's everything is connected. And actually, heart runs the show when you really understand how everything works, because ultimately our brain is just basically like it's kind of like acting on the signals that's coming, and it's doing what it needs to do based on what it's programmed to do, right? So there is that going on too. So I would say that yes, when you vibrate with the mindset of love, which is where heart comes into play. So I agree. So when you vibrate with the mindset of love, then your auric field gets enhanced because you are a light being, right? So as whatever you are vibrating in terms of based on your thought, it's impacting your aura, it's impacting your existence, and that impacts your experiences and what you interact with.
Well, let's kind of move on. I feel like we're rushing this because we've got so limited time, and I'd love to just spend like more time unpacking all of this
Maybe
stuff
you
because
can, yeah, and you're more than welcome to unpack with whatever we are doing, because don't think of time, because remember, time is also an illusion. And at the end of the day, when you focus on that, then it also starts driving it, you see? So I think that the time that we have is, and I know we have like 14 minutes left, but I don't worry about that. Just basically go deeper into it and it'll be fine.
Well, thank you for that, Shehnaz, because that is so critical, isn't it, in terms of like depth and breadth of what we're talking about. I know in your book, Quantum Being, you talk about the differences and similarities between a human versus a rocket. So that kind of ties in all the stuff which you're talking about, which is about how we're created from patterns in space and time, and how that kind of expresses itself in life according to various inputs. So can you just talk more about the technology of being human, because and compare that with the technology of rocket and being a rocket scientist and making rockets?
Right. So, and actually, it's interesting. I recently had an opportunity to speak at NASA where I made a point that I was looking at all these engineers and I'm saying that, sometimes we get carried away because we're working on a rocket. We give it so much more importance that we forget that we are also more significant, more important than the rocket, because as a human craft, we actually are way more intricate when we really look at our inside machinery. Because when you really look at how intricate it is, that our inner ear, right, kind of doesn't just like, not that it's only responsible for us to be able to hear, right, based on vibration, but it also completely is responsible for our balance on how we walk. So if you really think about how we are designed, like that is just beyond any rocketry I've ever seen, right? Because in the rocket, it's way more black and white. But in our human craft, with all the sensors that we have, everything is interconnected. I mean, look at our eyes, how it inverts the signal, but the eye doesn't do that. It's all done by pituitary and pineal gland, and how it makes a triangle on the back, and how it actually takes the information 2D and transforms into 3D. So all of that is so beautifully done. So to me, yeah, I think that the human craft is so more magnificent, which is the main reason we have such a, like, it's such a big quest for a human to make an AI, right, that can be close to human, partly because our human craft is very magnificent. So to me, like, yeah, I compare, like, the rocket has sensors, we have sensors, you know, rocket has navigation, we have navigation. But when you really go deep into it, it's just no comparison, because of the fact that we are way more amazing. So, and I know that I have in my book, I kind of go into more detail by comparing, you know, like how, because in a rocket, we have to pass the, you know, fluid through the valves, and we have the same pipeline going on in our body. So yeah, there are, like, I compare it mainly to make a point that, yes, you know, we have some similarity, but I actually want to say that we should be paying more attention to ourselves rather than the technology that we're creating. I think that's the bottom line message I want to convey, because a lot of time we get so carried away in our creation that we're not even paying attention to what's already there, which is us. We already are here, right? And we need to make sure that we stay in existence as we are creating new technologies, because we should not have to choose between our creation and ourselves.
Well, as you're talking, Shehnaz, I'm kind of wondering how you survived in the arenas you have, because I'm sure that whilst you've been around amazing intellects and people pushing the boundaries of exploration, it is very centered into the physical manifestation of everything, which is why there's this trend towards an AI and an inorganic agenda. So, how do you survive all that? Because you do come so much from the soul and the spirit. Do you create that bridge with people, or do they think, you're talking a completely different language?
I think I do create the bridge, and it's very interesting, right? Because if you think about it, I actually, when I come in people's life, including anyone's life, I feel like that I represent, like, I kind of affect with my presence, and then the way I think, the way I carry my energy, the way I speak. So I become a pattern buster for people. And I know that people are not able to come in my energy field most of the time if they are not aligned with it. And I have learned to accept that. But when they are able to come in the energy field, there's some magic happens where, even though they may not necessarily understand me or 100% agree with me, but they take something from it, and it ends up affecting their life for good. Because that's actually, it's a very good question that you asked, because I'm going to bring it back to the fractal holographic matrix, because that is the secret, by the way, of fractal holographic matrix, because it actually proves the interconnectedness of everything in the quantum field. And that interconnectedness is the reason that we can have 100 monkey effect or ripple effect, or effect in the humanity and the consciousness at the level, right? That where you found out about me, we're having this convergence, and now we're going to affect all the people through our exchange that we're having right now. So that, to me, is how you keep making ripples in the timelines, and you open more portals, and you affect everything at a very multidimensional level. So I believe that the very fact that I am aware of it, and I'm able to keep that. So the key thing that I want to leave everyone with in this podcast especially, is that no matter what, you should never question your essence, right? No matter what, you should never stop being who you are, because I would not have reached this far if I would have questioned myself, right? So the very fact that I never questioned myself, and there was only one thing that I had faith in, and that was myself. And I think that faith is good when you have it on yourself, because we're all here in this dense reality for a very small snapshot of time to truly understand the earth school in a way so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves. And that requires you to have a courage to stand up for yourself no matter what is being thrown at you.
Well, very eloquently said. And there's so many things in what you're saying. I think what probably, and I'm loving talking with you, Shehnaz, is that what kind of separates you out, although we're all connected, as you say, and we all have the capacity to do this, is the level of activation you've gone on. Because it's okay saying, yeah, we have this amazing architecture that's connected to the divine, and but you actually know how it works.
Yes.
In that you've activated it. So, for example, you talk about passion as being really crucial in terms of expanding the trigger of consciousness as a trigger. And within the spinal column there's a section around which relates to a certain chakra around our passion side. So you obviously know how all this works to activate it. Did that come from your Cabala training, or did you know that already?
So it's interesting because I actually say that you keep collecting gold dust as you go through different levels of understanding yourself. A Cabala training that I actually was training other people 10 years ago is when I understood about the flower of life, right? And how consciousness comes into existence, and how tree of life, which is the Cabala teaching, is a subset of the bigger picture, which is the flower of life. And flower of life has 13 circles. And when you really understand each of these circles, which represents a knowledge system, then you realize that, my God, we have barely scratched the surface when it comes to understanding who we are in the big scheme of life. But my understanding of light body activation, which is what I teach, and I have courses in my shop, came from my own personal, I have gone through many, many sickness, like really horrendous sickness. And in the year 2019, I was pretty much hospitalized by the disease that they couldn't even figure out. So that, and then I was put on a whole bunch of medication that was really messing me up. And really, so in order for me to wean myself off of it, I actually ended up creating my own methodology, which is what I teach, which is light body activation. And it's all about activating your pineal gland in a way and connecting yourself with the earth grid so that you don't even think that you exist anymore, because you and universe becomes one. And in that convergence, you ended up accessing the 0 point energy that really brings that resonance home for you, and your cell and everything ultimately transforms, because it's just like taking a cold plunge, right? You do all these different things that completely takes you to a place where you haven't been before. And when you do that, you charge your voltage, you up your cell voltage to the point where you can be at the 70 millivolts, or the voltage that is a higher potential for your cell to operate on. And you're able to do a lot of things. And I was able to wean off myself from medicine that supposedly was given to me, that you're going to have to take this for a lifetime, because, for the most part, that's how traditional medicine works. So the point of the story is that I've gone through many different experiences, and because I'm an engineer and I like to solve problems, in the whole process of solving problems, and I don't just use one faculty, right? I don't just use like one dimensional thinking, that this is the only way I'm going to heal myself. I believe that we all need to start using our multidimensional self in every single aspect of our existence, because that's how we can truly do what we came here to do.
Well, it's interesting you're saying what you're saying in terms of the medical profession, because I did have a doctor on recently who talked very much about that, and how human beings can heal themselves, and just need to tap into that healing that's innate in the way that we are. Just in terms of, because I know that you are really encouraging the audience in the way that you are talking, and as you say, people come into your field, you do have like a positive effect, and I want to know, how you've continued smiling so much through all the adversity you've experienced in your life. Did you learn to smile? or have you always smiled?
I think I'm probably smiling a little bit more now. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's because it's funny because, you know, when you're going through all these things, I mean, you don't really smile, you cry. I mean, you scream. I mean, you ask God that, what the hell, man? I actually sometimes wondered that why did I have to go through so many challenging experiences all in one body and all in one life? I mean, like there were times I'm like, okay, what kind of contract did I sign, right? When they were deciding to send me here, I was saying that, oh, sure, you know, give me that one too, give me that one too. I'm like, what the hell? I must have raised my hand way more than to get all these different experiences. So yeah, no, there are times it's very hard to be me because I have gone through extreme experiences, and even just being a mother and having to raise a child who is, you know, cerebral palsy with all the challenges that comes with it. So it has been an ongoing journey for me in so many different aspects. But the one funny thing is that generally when I'm going through challenges, of course, I don't smile. Truly, I'm a human being like you are. So of course I feel the suffering. I don't like it. But then the good thing is I don't stay there. That's the only reason I'm smiling right now, is because I never stay the place where I don't like it, right? And that's what I'm saying to everyone, that if you don't like something, then the only one who's going to help you is you. You're going to have to make a difference and change it. But if you don't, you know, I mean, that's just the way. So then when you do that, then you're going to be smiling afterwards, because you're going to be like, look what I've done. Look, I'm no longer in that reality that truly wasn't aligning with me.
Well, you've given one tip on not staying in the negative and transforming it, but I just want to quote something you say in your book. As we undertake the daunting task of transformation, we embark on the journey that will ultimately become habitual, automatic, and effortless, akin to a rocket leaving the Earth. At first, the initial launch requires enormous power, then less and less as it leaves the Earth's gravitational field. Finally, the rocket moves through space under its own momentum, breaking all barriers beyond imagination to traverse new worlds. So, what advice can you give the audience on how to best calibrate their vehicles for this?
Well, first they need to just write down their obituary. Just go, because that's how, you know, you do reverse engineering, right? So you write down the obituary that you would like to have, and then just live a life to match that. It's not that hard. I mean, that's what I would say, right? Because I kind of like, I was talking to like my kids, right? And I have kind of done so many different things. I said, I think my obituary looks pretty good. So I'm actually done and I should leave whenever I feel like it. And they're like, no, mom, you can't leave. I'm like, you know, but that is the good place to be, because everybody needs to be in a place where they feel like they've done what they came here to do. So my advice to everyone is that if you don't do what you really want to do, then what are you really doing here on Earth?
Well, I have to say, Shehnaz, you have been one of the most inspirational guests I've had on this podcast. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Sorry, it's so brief. We did have some internet problems before, which has kind of lessened it, which the viewers don't know about. But is there any way? Is there people can contact you? Is there a website they can get hold of you to find out more about you, what you do?
Yeah, so my name pretty much, shanazsoni.com is my website. So it's easy to find me. And when you type my name on Google, you'll find all the different things that I'm in. I'm on Instagram, on LinkedIn for professional, you know, my work. And I do make videos on YouTube and things like that. I do teach every now and then. I do dwell into all the words, so have a very exciting life. But yeah, please definitely grab a copy of my book, The Quantum Being, because that will open the door for you to embrace some new realities that you may not have thought about yet.
Well, I like the innovation within the book because it's both written and video. So you've got like links to YouTubes where you actually talk about sections of the book as well. So I think that's innovative as well. So Shehnaz, I know that we've come to the end of time. So I want to really thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. And I'm sure the listeners will have been really enlightened to hear about, as human beings, we can undertake the transformation as we embark on our own quantum space journey. And even if a tiny percent of humans start vibrating as quantum beings, we can create a positive ripple effect throughout our universe. And how our feelings broadcast magnetic charges in the quantum field, where we manifest our own fractal holographic realities. So I think we've covered all those things in such a brief amount of time, and I'm just imagining some of the viewers' heads spinning about some of the constant themes through it. But there is a constant theme, isn't there? It's about being awake, aware, and at the wheel and taking control of the vehicle that we're all maneuvering through space and time.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that we gave everybody a Reader Digest version of all the important aspects that makes you you. And when you really dive into it, it just opens up a whole new world, like Wizard of the Oz, right? That movie depicts exactly what we are here to do.
Yes, yeah. Okay, I'm hearing the thing about returning home, and you're talking about space travel there. So,
Yes.
Shehnaz, wonderful to speak to you. And
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for everybody who's tuned in to listening to this podcast. And as usual, I'm going to be uploading it to my Spotify account, Ameena Ahmed Free Thinkers Hub. And once again, a huge thank you, Shehnaz.
Welcome.
And
Thank
to
you
you
very
as
much.
well. Take care. Bye.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.